Once upon a time, in a cozy little village nestled between green hills and quiet woods, lived a kind and humble shoemaker. He wasn't rich. In fact, he and his wife were very poor. But he made the finest shoes in the village, sturdy, neat, and always stitched with care. However, times had grown hard. Fewer people were buying shoes. The shoemaker had just enough leather left to make one last pair of shoes. "This is all we have left, my dear," he sighed as he placed the last bit of leather on his workbench. "Let's hope it sells well tomorrow." He carefully cut the leather and placed the pieces neatly on the table, planning to stitch them in the morning. Then he and his wife went to bed, their hearts hopeful, yet heavy. But the next morning, something amazing happened. As the shoemaker walked into his shop, his eyes widened in surprise. What in the world? There on his workbench stood a beautiful pair of shoes, perfectly stitched, polished to a shine. Every seam was flawless. He called to his wife in disbelief. "I didn't make these. Did you?" She shook her head. "No, it's like magic." That day, a wealthy merchant entered the shop and saw the shoes. "These are marvelous. I'll take them at once and pay double." The shoemaker was overjoyed. With the money, he bought enough leather to make 2 more pairs of shoes. Again, he cut the leather and left it on the table. And again, the next morning, there stood 2 perfect pairs of shoes, ready to sell. Day after day, the same mysterious thing happened. The shoemaker became successful once more. He and his wife had food to eat, warm clothes to wear, and joy in their hearts. But now they were curious. Who is helping us every night? The shoemaker wondered. So one cold winter evening, they decided to stay up and watch. They lit a small candle, hid behind a curtain, and waited. At midnight, the shop door creaked open softly. In skipped 2 tiny elves, no taller than a teacup. Their clothes were ragged and their feet were bare, but their fingers worked fast and cheerfully. They cut, stitched, hammered, and polished, working until the shoes were finished. Then, with a giggle, they disappeared into the night. The shoemaker and his wife were speechless. Such little fellows, and so kind. The wife's eyes sparkled. They've done so much for us. We must do something for them. So the very next day, she took out her finest cloth and stitched tiny shirts, coats, and trousers. She knitted little socks and even made 2 tiny pairs of shoes. That night, instead of leather, they left the clothes and shoes on the workbench with a note that said, "Thank you for your kindness. These are for you." At midnight, the elves came in as usual. When they saw the clothes, their eyes lit up with joy. They danced, twirled, and sang, "No more working in the cold. We've warm coats and shoes to hold." Then, with a happy skip, the elves disappeared, and they were never seen again. But the shoemaker and his wife never forgot their kindness. And even without the elves, their little shop remained filled with happiness, laughter, and success, because their hearts were always full of gratitude and goodwill. Moral of the story: kindness gets kindness in return. When we are thankful and generous, even the smallest good deeds can bring big magic into our lives.